questions I had for Aatman, who works at Tattle, was how could you talk to us about how Uli, the plugin, helps
Yeah.
us sort of filter our feed and how it helps us, at least on some level, have a safer experience?
Right. Yes. Thank you so much for having me here. So, whatever I'll be talking today is a lot of work done by researchers, activists, and technologists. I'm today just a small communicator of all the work that uh, they did. So to answer this question, I'll sort of break my answer into two parts. First, I'll just give in some background into how Uli, the browser plugin, was created, and then how Uli helps people respond to online gender-based violence. The background into how Uli was created will also better help understand how Uli helps people respond to OGB. So, as you said, Kaustubh, Uli is a browser plugin that denormalizes the everyday violence that people of marginalized genders experience in India. Uli also provides tools for relief and collective response. It is a browser extension that currently works on Chrome, Brave, and Firefox. But one of its features allows users to moderate instances of online gender-based violence in Indian languages. Uli is built by the Center for Internet and Society and Tattle Civic Tech. So in 2021, in June 2021, through various focus group discussions with over 30 plus activists and researchers who have either been at the receiving end of this violence or have been involved in making social media more accessible or have been involved in this research. So through focus group discussions, we learned how gender based violence online is experienced by different users. And and one of the things that clearly came out that people at the receiving end face a lot of consistent fatigue, panic, and anxiety. And fatigue was the most prominent thing that came up. So what this does, that this reduces the discourse by marginalized voices on issues that affect them the most, because they are so already exhausted by the fatigue and the panic and anxiety that they face. Then they have no, so they anyway don't have more capacity to respond back to that. So so this was like a main starting point of creating Uli. And through these discussions, we also asked the participants of the most desirable features that they would like to have in Uli, of how can we give more decision making power in the hands of a user. So Uli responds to online gender-based violence in three major ways. It gives a user an option to archive tweets. It redacts abusive content from a user's online feed, and it provides translations of community resources. So, what is archiving tweets? This feature essentially allows users to archive. In this case, archiving means like downloading it on their computer or sharing a tweet to them by email. So, for then this archived tweets could be then used to report harassment to the respective platform or the concerned law enforcement. Suroor ma'am was talking about documentation, and this could be one way of it, archiving those tweets. So, say if user A posts something abusive for towards user B, and user B wants to report it, so user B can archive it to store it and report it later in case user A deletes the tweet, or the platform removes the tweet. The second way is redacting abusive content online. So when we talk about redacting abusive content online, a natural question arises that, what is considered abusive content? So Tattle created, crowdsourced a slur list, a list of slurs from the help of researchers, activists, and people at the receiving end of this abuse. Using this crowdsourced slur list, one of the key feature in redacting abusive content is slur replacement. So we blur out all the slurs on your online feed. So let's say if you are scrolling through Wikipedia, Twitter, any other online website, any abusive word found in our slur list will be blurred on your feed or will be patched on your feed. Another key feature is that we allow users to crowdsource abusive content. What I mean by that is that users can crowdsource a slur word along with its relevant metadata. So metadata such as what is the level of severity of the slur, is this slur used in a casual context, is this used in an appropriate context, things like that. Let's say a user sees a slur that is not in our slur list, that could be possible. So we give an user, there's an option that a user can create their own personalized slur list. So if I want a word that I don't want to see on my online feed, I can add it to my personal slur list, and that will also be blurred in the entire online feed. Another key feature is that we have online gender based we have a machine learning model to detect online gender based violence. So it has been trained on a large Twitter data set. This Twitter data set is a data set of tweets in Hindi, English, and Tamil, and it was also annotated by researchers and activists who participated with us in the focus group discussions. So what this machine learning model will essentially do is that it will flag a tweet. If it recognizes a tweet with gender-based violence, so the tweet will flag. So you'll get like a warning saying that this tweet contains OGBV, and yeah. So the third and final way how Uli helps people respond to GBV is that by providing translation of community resources. What we found that community guidelines were often not available for regional languages. So there were ways where there were guidelines where it was written how to respond, report such incidences, but they were not for regional languages. So one we did was that we collected such different information and put it at one place in English, and then we translated that to Hindi. So this document helps people understand and mitigate the abuse that they face. And also, we translated the community guidelines for Twitter in Hindi. So Twitter also has detailed community guidelines on how to respond. So we also translated that in Hindi. So yeah, these are some ways in which Uli helps people respond to gender-based violence.
Thank you, Atman. I think that's a very like cohesive way to respond through tech. Often you see tech as the site where you experience these things. So having tech responses is very important as well, because we can't, the traditional methods are the main ways. Law enforcement and legal process is the main way, but it definitely helps to have tech responses where people aren't out to get us, so to speak. We're not just subjects of big tech and
Yeah.
whatever they want to do with our
Yeah.
information or our experiences.
Yeah.
So my final question is, you are working for a civic tech company. It's building tools, it's doing things to help people really have better experiences online. So what would you say to encourage more people to enter the space, or what should civic tech be doing to help address very deep and complex offenses like online gender-based violence?
Um, so, so, uh, so for us, we realize that we have to give the first and foremost importance to the people who are at the end of abuse. So when we think of building more accurate and practical tools to address offenses, even Bishakha ma'am talked about how we have to listen to the needs of the person who is facing the abuse. We have to keep them at the center of the discussion. So this is a very key thing for us to develop such tools. A is that all the stakeholders have to be involved, especially the people at the end of the abuse. We have to include them in every step of the process, and their needs have to be heard. A second important thing of how to build the tools is that the needs of the people have to be translated to the tech team properly. Now, the translation here is not like a literal translation, but the translation where the context of this social problem is communicated well. Questions like why one is building this tool, who who all will this tool be affected, and more things around the social problem have to be communicated well to the tech team. You cannot just say build a machine learning model for the sake of it. There is a lot of things that go around. All that has to be communicated well to the tech team. And one more thing that is required to build such tools and for more people to get involved in building such tools is a bottom up approach. So what Suroor ma'am was talking about, that these companies say social media companies find the problems and they are asked to deal with the content moderation part of it. But the problem there is that there is no involvement of the people who are being affected. So these companies are building content moderation tools by not taking in by not including the people who are affected. So that's why a bottom up approach is needed, or to more broadly speak, a community driven AI or a tech approach is needed. This enables two the things. It improves the transparency of the development process. If people at the end of the abuse, their needs get a chance to be addressed. Tools become more accessible for a wider range of users. And if it's community driven, it is also very easy. I wouldn't say easy, but we can better help identify and mitigate the biases that come in building tech, or say AI, to speak broadly. So what since Tattle believes that the people at the receiving ends are the best judges, so that's why we have partnered with such organizations. We have partnered with organizations like Khabar Area, Point of View, Nazariya, and Feminism in India. So with Feminism in India and Khabar Area, they are feminist organizations that are targeted for the content they create. So we are working with them to explore how can Uli make it easier for them to handle the negative engagement they receive. What is the type of negative engagement they receive, and how can Uli help? We are working with Point of View and Nazariya to build our lexicon meaning the slur list that we crowdsource. How can we make it better? We are working with them to sort of, so we have created metadata fields for each slur, such as I talked before, what is the level of severity of the slur, what makes this slur problematic, and we are trying to create a larger data set. What this data set will enable is to create better AI models with context. So there could be certain words that are sometimes used casually, sometimes not. How do I filter out certain content? So we hope that with the creation of this data set, it will help out. And we are also keen for this data set to be used by trust and safety teams working in content moderation. So if anyone wants to contribute, or work with us or help build this, please reach out to us. But yeah, I think these are some 2 3 ways that come to my mind, that can, yeah, help build more practical and accurate tools to address online gender-based violence.
I'd request if either of the speakers have any concluding remarks, anything they'd like to say to sort of round this off. We would really love that.
Okay, thanks. First of all, this has been so interesting, right? Like, really just hearing all these thoughts. Just two things, one about law and one about platforms. Everything, and certainly I'm not opposed to criminal remedies, but I'm just saying we need a wider menu. So, one of the things that always strikes me is, again, the gender norms underlying law, right? Like, if we take, say, cases of robbery, theft, murder, etc., the person who's undergoing them is never asked, oh, did you leave your door open? Is that why the thief came? Right? Like, it's so absurd. Right? The person who's murdered, their family is never asked. Like, oh, is this how you, because you did this happen? Right? And the big bias we really see with all gender based law, like any gender based crimes, whether offline or online, is this real morality bias, right? That's a big one that we really need to break. And we see it in the IT Act, where a lot of non consensual intimate images, instead of being put under Section 66E, which deals with non consent and upholding privacy, are classified as obscene images under Section 67, which means even the person who participated in the making, maybe voluntarily, becomes implicated in that, right? And secondly, Atma, when I was listening to you, I was just thinking, like, it's amazing, right? What Tattle is doing with Uli. And it just makes me think, like, this is like a demonstration thing. Like, why can't Twitter or X provide us the same thing if you really think about it, right? If Tattle can do it, what stops the platform from taking it seriously and saying, hey, we can have features like this that all users can use?
If I can, I think, Bishakha ji, agreeing with you completely. I think that, but I would add one more thing, that we should not shy away from making our public officials accountable, because completely, I think that this lies at the doorstep of the parliament, it lies at the doorstep of our commissions, because you have these informal systems. Why isn't the National Commission for Women acting more strongly when they know something like this is happening? What is the Minorities Commission doing? What are we doing about the questions of intersectionality? And I think that making tech accountable is a very easy, and I think, it's a grab or a news grab worthy sort of thing to say. But we have to make our public officials accountable, because things like sextortion, things like violence against women, and this everyday online harassment. You file something that the comment will be, "I will rape you." And that, and the fact that the state says that, okay, we've created one wing, that wing will do it, and it's like a black hole that doesn't. So we have to find alternatives. So instead, I feel that while agreeing with everything, I would say that for me, the issue lies at the doorstep of the officials, especially our legislators and our parliamentarians.